Hey, I'm Chris from Make Everything. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you a really handy little sanding tool for your metal and wood shop to get into tight places and get some work done. Check it out. All right, so these are called Polirolls, or commonly known as spiral sanding cones. So these are essentially abrasive that is wrapped in a spiral to give this cone shape. And there's some adhesive on the back, and these slip over and screw into a mandrel. And the reason that you would use these over a traditional kind of just like sleeve of sandpaper is because you've got multiple layers of abrasive in there that get exposed as you work with the consumable. So you can see on this one that I've used a little bit, as I'm wearing away some of that abrasive, there's new abrasive underneath it. Now these can be super helpful for getting into hard to reach places and grinding out welds or kind of refining shapes. They work for metal, wood, you can use them on stainless and plastic and stuff like that. Now there are a couple little tricks to them, and there's a couple of shapes that, you know, can be utilized to accomplish different things. Like for instance, this is a very, many layered round band, which you can imagine can be kind of conformed to fit into any shape as you're sort of grinding it and you're wearing away the material. Now, these are made in a variety of shapes and a variety of grits. So over here, I've got some in 120, some in 80, but all of these are aluminum oxide. So aluminum oxide is going to be good for kind of general steel use, but also be really good for wood and aluminum. Anything that you really need to grind, aluminum oxide can generally take care of it, but it's not as long lasting as some of the more high performance abrasives that are out there. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you know that I really like these cordless die grinders, but these obviously can be used on a pneumatic die grinder as well. Now, on the boxes for these abrasives, they recommend certain speeds just to get the optimal use out of them. And with these particular sizes, you're going to be anywhere between 12,000 and 20,000 RPMs. Now, with an air-powered die grinder, you get a little bit less control over what your actual speed is, but with these battery operated ones, you can select the speed on the back. Like this Milwaukee does 10, 15, 20, 25, and this Ryobi does the same 10, 15, 20, and 25 down here on the speed selector. So that's kind of nice because you can limit your speed so you don't wind up running these things too fast and burning them up. Now the mandrel for these is a little funny looking, and I think some people get a little confused as to how to use them. So the mandrel is essentially threaded here on the bottom and then has a straight shaft on top, and it's a hardened mandrel, so it's not going to bend. But what I think a lot of people do is they try to screw these things all the way onto those mandrels. Now, if you can imagine, this is essentially a self-tightening setup. So as this arbor is rotating and you're putting resistance on this band, you're essentially tightening this up, which if anything is going to cause it to work its way further down that coned thread, which is going to tighten this in. So when I use these, I don't go crazy to try to get them on super, super tight. I let them work themselves in instead of really just like wrenching on it with my hands. Now you can see on these two mandrels, you've got that little bit of metal sticking out the front. That's because these mandrels are meant to fully support this cone. But if you wanted to, you could use a shorter mandrel with a larger consumable, and then it gives you sort of a soft edge where there is no metal supporting the very tip of this, so you can kind of mush it into a corner if you have to. Similarly, on this straight and kind of fatter tube shape, this is fully supported because I've got that metal sticking out the end. Now I have other mandrels like this that I've cut down just so that they're very specifically sized for specific consumables. But for the most part, you can use these as is, and you just have to be a little bit careful because if you're working on something sensitive, you don't want that to touch the end. So let me show you how these work on some metal and some wood. So a very common application for these type of spiral bands is for porting engines, but I actually really like to use them to deburr the insides of pieces of tubing. Now you can imagine I could get in here with a tungsten carbide burr, but it's potentially going to remove more material than I want. It's going to create those little shards. So these little cone mandrels fit perfectly inside even this small 1x1 tube and are going to do a great job softening up that inside. So you can see as I'm cutting through this, any abrasive that's wearing off is exposing new abrasive beneath it. Similar on this barrel style, you can see as I'm wearing away, I'm exposing new abrasive underneath. So now I wouldn't want to contaminate this aluminum with the steel that I used in these abrasives. So just from grinding that steel, there is little pieces of steel particles embedded in this. So what I would want to do before I switch over to another material is I would want to put on a new consumable so that this piece would always remain corrosion resistant. But you'll be able to see how well this aluminum oxide takes care of some of these facets on this piece of aluminum. Constant exposure of new abrasive and easy to switch out for a different tube. Once one of them wears out, we can actually use one of these shorter ones to get in with a little bit of a larger diameter inside this corner. Now obviously if this stuff will handle metal, it'll handle wood, but I'll just give you a little example, just kind of grinding away some material here. Again, I'm going to switch out my abrasive because I don't want to contaminate the wood with any metal particles, but typically if you're going to purchase these, they're going to come in a box of 50, so you're going to be kind of quickly being able to move through them. So a good application for one of these spiral bands is an inside corner weld, the dreaded inside corner weld. And I know I've showed a bunch of different methods of dealing with this, but a spiral band can be good for this because sometimes you just can't get a file in there. Sometimes you can't get an angle grinder with the curved disc in there, which is what I prefer to use. So let's just take a look at this simple inside corner and how we can take care of it using a spiral band on a die grinder. So in a pretty short amount of time, I've got a nice clean inside weld now. There's still a little bit of more work I can do to it to just refine it, but you can see how getting that band in there, and like I said, constantly exposing new abrasive allows me to get in there. And this piece is still good to even deburr the back of this tube. So even a pretty heavily worn consumable still has life in it because there are multiple layers of sandpaper underneath there. So that about does it for this video. Poliroll cartridges and spiral band cones like this can be super helpful in really any application in any type of shop, right? It works really well on wood, great on aluminum. They work excessively well on plastic, almost too well. And on metal, they can really help you get into those hard to reach places, especially when it comes to deburring tube. And what's really nice about them is if you compare this to like the standard kind of little sanding drum that you would use on like a Dremel, something you would see at like a home store. Once you get past that first layer of abrasive, which takes 2 seconds, it's shot. With these, because you have those multiple layers of abrasive, you really get a chance to work a little bit longer before switching consumables. Also, that cone shape and using different style mandrels can allow you to get into tight places and really get more work done in a way that you wouldn't be able to do with any other consumable. These consumables are from Fair Abrasive. They make a line of this stuff called the Poliroll. It is a higher quality abrasive than the cheap stuff that I've used before, and they make it in a huge variety of different types of abrasive, grits, and everything on the box recommends what speed to run them at, the optimal speed and the maximum speed. So for that, you get a little more out of your consumables just by following those simple instructions. If you're interested in the Poliroll and the mandrels that I have here, check the links down below from Fared, and there's also a link to the Fared tool catalog, which, like I've said in a bunch of my other videos, can be a really great resource for just learning about new consumables, learning about new stuff that you can use in your metal or wood shop, and ways to kind of make your life a little bit easier. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments if you want to see more tool videos like this and enjoy these types of videos, kind of sharing different things that I use in my shop in order to get my work done faster. If you want to see what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, follow me right here at Make Everything Shop on Instagram. I'm posting all the time, doing a million different things at once here in the shop, and it's going to be a very busy summer, so I hope you're there to follow along. Subscribe to my channel for more videos in the shop. We've got a couple cool projects. The power hammer is very, very close. And a couple cool build projects going on in the works in the background. So again, I'm Chris from Make Everything. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on the next one.